Now, maybe this is news only to me. Maybe this is common knowledge. I don't know. By the way, what's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from the Quartering. I wanted to do a little bit of digging around the ESRB as well as the PEGI, which are the two main companies that rate video games, essentially letting parents know what is appropriate for their kids. It's largely ignored as far as I can tell. I mean, I used to work at Walmart, worked in the video game section, and I remember many times even telling parents of like, oh, this is rated M, are you sure? And they'd be like, shut up, kid, you work at Walmart. Don't tell me how to raise my kids. So nobody really cares about them. But on top of that, to me, they're also a joke, probably corrupt, and just a further marketing arm for big video game media. They're used by, run by people in the video game industry. These are the people that are supposed to be literally policing their own video games. I'm going to show you who's on their board of directors, and you might be surprised who's at the top running things. Now, you may say, well, there's plenty of employees at the ESRB and PEGI that are not in the video games industry. Sure. But when the 10 people on your board of directors are, what do you think the likelihood is of you going against the grain? What do you think the likelihood is of them slapping a T rating on a game like NBA 2K20, which absolutely, by their own rating system, it deserves? NBA 2K20, produced by 2K Games, CEO of 2K Games, Strauss Zelnick. Strauss Zelnick is on the board of the ESRB, as well as some other people that I'm going to show you in just a minute. NBA 2K20, by the ESRB's own standards, should be rated T for teen. If we look at their ratings guide, E for everyone, which NBA 2K20 is. Content is generally suitable for all ages. May contain minimal cartoons, fantasy, things like that. Okay, mild language. Okay, well, I suppose E for everyone would apply here. 10 plus. Content is generally suitable for ages 10 and up. May contain more cartoon, bad behavior, mild language, or minimal suggestive themes. T. Now, this is an interesting one because this is the literal mention of gambling mechanics. Content is generally suitable for 13 and up. May contain, violent, suggestive theme, crude humor, minimal blood, simulated gambling, and or infrequent use of strong language. At best, I'm sorry, in its most forgiving sense, NBA 2K20 should absolutely be rated T with these literal gambling mechanics in the game. I mean, it has actual slot machines and pachinko machines where you essentially convert real money cash, in whether it's direct or indirect, into gambling mechanics. Whether or not you take the real money into it, the game still uses gambling, simulated gambling. Should be rated T, absolutely. If we go to M, actually, to be honest with you, it should probably be A for adults, as it has gambling with real currency. Now, they get around it because you're buying digital currency and then eventually kind of converting that to this experience. But this is a ridiculous loophole that the ESRB continues to ignore. And it's interesting since the ESRB largely doesn't affect sales except with its M ratings. It'd be interesting that it's interesting that they don't update the rating systems, isn't it? Because I think if I'm buying digital goods, okay, and then converting that to essentially pay to win mechanics, I'm putting money into the game to buy digital currency to then put into a literal slot machine like you do in NBA 2K20, I would consider that gambling with real currency. In fact, I would say that most reasonable people would. Now, should you slap NBA 2K20 with this title? Maybe it would make a statement. Maybe if every store had to put NBA 2K20 behind the counter for a month until they remove that mechanic. Maybe that would make the statement. Look, I love sports games. I know I'm a normie. I play Madden 20, and for all of its flaws, I still enjoy it because I love football, American football. I play MLB 2K20 because I enjoy baseball. I have never put one penny into any of these games. 80%, 90% of all players probably never do. 5% of the remaining put a ton, and the other 5% may dabble here and there. But that is what drives the revenue. Now, there's a reason, I believe, they're not updating this. When you look at the team, as far as these people, the president, Patricia Vance, then you've got David Casack as senior vice president. You got Bill Garrity. You just got a bunch of people who clearly don't play video games. And then you got this person with like this weird look of confusion on her face. But I mean, you have an executive team. How many people work for the ESRB? I didn't know that it was this gigantic behemoth of a company, which, by the way, since they're a nonprofit, we can look at their tax forms. And since they're a nonprofit, we can also see who their board members are. This is publicly available, and I will leave a link in the description to this because I think it's interesting. Now, you heard me mention Strauss Zelnick before. Just follow the money, okay? Strauss, CEO of 2K Games. 2K Games publishes 2 games, both Grand Theft Auto 5, look, for example, Borderlands, and now, in this particular case, NBA 2K. He is a member on the board of the ESRB. I'm always going to say that wrong. Don't you think it's curious that he's on the board of an association that is responsible for rating his games? Isn't it plausible that he has some level of influence inside that company? This is corruption right in front of our faces. Why would you even want, if you wanted to have this agency to rate your video games, which, by the way, in my opinion, is likely only in place to, quote, protect video games industry because they put it in place to, like, head off anybody in the government getting involved in video games. It's the same thing they're going to do with microtransactions. They're going to start to talk about how they're policing, how they're self-policing. Oh, we're gonna start this foundation, which some of our biggest, most recognizable, powerful figures sit on the board, but they're gonna regulate our microtransactions, just like they're gonna regulate the rating of our games. Notice who else is on this board? Reggie Fils-Aimé. Again, this is a man that is universally loved, but also in the video games industry. And to say he has no influence inside this company would be blind. How about Phil Spencer? How about Phil Spencer from Xbox? Right? As the vice chairman. And then we have Michael Gallagher and Anna Molina with 40 hours per week. Now, they put one person in there. And like, the thing is, if you want to look up, by the way, if you look up Phil Spencer, right, it's interesting that you have, okay, Phil Spencer, obviously executive from Xbox, from the ESRB. You know, is there anything where these people are honest about their parts in the company? Now, I'm sure there, you know, it's interesting when you look at Strauss Zelnick's LinkedIn page. He's the chairman and CEO of Take-Two Interactive, 2K Games, partner in Zelnick Media Capital, president of BG Entertainment. At no point does he mention that he's on the board for the ESRB. Do you think that that's on purpose? Maybe he omitted it. Maybe. Or maybe these people want to not exactly advertise that. You know, Phil Spencer, is he out there talking about how he sits on this exact forum? I don't see it. And then when we look at replies, like what we got from Peggy, which is basically the pan-European version of the ESRB, or ERS, I want to say it wrong. This was basically their official response to NBA 2K games, and you tell me if you agree. We have seen the announcement trailer of NBA 2K20 and noticed the controversy it has caused. By the way, I've been told they deleted that trailer. I'm not sure if they did or not. We feel it's important to carefully explain when certain content is triggering the gambling descriptor in the PEGI system, but also to show when it does not. A video game that gets this content descriptor if it contains moving images that encourage or teach the use of games of chance that are played and carried out by the traditional means. So, like, for example, literal slot machines in your game. Now let's go and listen to your double talk and industry speak. We use text to help clarify. This refers to the types of betting or gambling for money that is normally played or carried out at casinos. I don't know, like slot machines? This does not cover games where it's simply a part of the general storyline. The game must actually teach the player how to gamble or bet, or encourage the player to want to bet for money in real life. For example, this includes games that teach the player how to play card games that are used for playing for money. Are you joking? This is how narrow your descriptor is? I mean, even the most loose definition, I would say, of what's going on in NBA 2K20 is it is encouraging this type of behavior. It is pandering to people who have problems, and it is opening itself up to unbelievable levels of scrutiny and now government involvement. It's important to stress that the controversial imagery played a center role of the trailer, but may not necessarily do so in the game, which has not yet been released. At this point, PEGI can only comment on the trailer as has been made publicly available. It includes imagery that is generally known from casinos, Wheel of Fortune, and slot machines. Using this sort of mechanic to select an item or character in action is not the same as teaching to gamble for money. Are you joking? Perhaps I'm being too reductive here, but I put money into a slot machine in hopes of winning something I want. Now, inside of that establishment, it's money out. But inside the video game, it's player upgrades, it's customizables, it's add-ons, it's cosmetics. But in both scenarios, I'm exchanging my money in hopes for getting something I want. Something that I want is a part of a game of chance. Now, if you want to sell all these customizables for 50 cents each, I'll make fun of you, but I won't call it gambling. But what NBA 2K has done here is clearly, in my opinion, pandering to people that like those type of mechanics. It's more than just a tiny part of the game. Yes, it's only a part, and I agree with that. But it's a part that makes all the money. It's the part of the game that makes 2K games all the money. And I believe that PEGI and the ESRB are being willfully ignorant and willfully hyper-specific in their definitions of things to continue to protect the video games industry, which continues to push the lines of what is and what isn't okay in exchange for money. NBA 2K20, 2K games in general, and to be honest with you, Grand Theft Auto 5 with their Casino 2 have basically taken the I don't care, this won't last forever, so screw it, let's just go all the way attitude. I don't like that in video games. I don't like that's where video games are going. I wish that these companies would find better ways to make money, because what's ultimately going to happen is a major shakeup in the industry when somebody like 2K or EA or some other developer goes too far, and now you've got a bunch of old boomers getting involved, and that's even worse. I don't know which one I would want. The ESRB, which is basically run by the video games industry, or a bunch of old boomers coming in talking about what's okay in video games. Neither is ideal. I don't know how you fix this, but I don't trust anyone involved, and I hope that this information was helpful to you. And if it was, make sure you share it out there so people really know who's running all this stuff behind the scenes. I hope you enjoyed this video. We'll talk to you again real soon. I sincerely hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, before you leave, make sure you leave a like and drop a comment on it. It's the only way to help the channel grow in today's YouTube environment. Above, you'll find a link to subscribe, and make sure you turn your notifications on, or if you just want to check out another video, there's one of those up there too.